Hello, internet. So today I'm going to talk about vaccines. My credentials are that I am a pretty staunch MAGA supporter for the past, I don't know, 10 years, but I'm not far right. I'm like the average center right, educated MAGA supporter. Yes, we exist. And so I'm going to give my opinion on vaccines and the current RFK hearings because, frankly, both sides are bullshit. I hate to be a both sides are bad guy, but in this case, it's very much true. So I'm going to start with some science. I was a bio. I my scientific background is that not the most advanced. I was a bio major for 2 years. I worked in a plant genetics lab for about a year and a half. I then switched to becoming a chemical engineer. So I've taken like a good amount of organic chemistry, took 2 semesters of biochemistry, bunch of biology courses, math, physics, all of that stuff. Um, so I'm more educated than the average layman when it comes to biology and chemistry and that kind of thing, which is enough to know I don't really know what I'm talking about. But those are my credentials. Take them or leave them. I'm a right wing, scientific minded MAG supporter. Um, yeah. So let's first talk about what vaccines are. Again, this is like very much high school type stuff. You probably remember it. But in case you don't, basically bacteria have these things called antigens on them. Antigens are proteins that stick out basically from the cell membrane, and they're different based on what bacteria based on what bacteria you have. That's how they work. Um, so what happens when your body gets bacteria is your body builds anti-antigens basically to recognize what they're seeing. So if you see a bacteria, you see it again next time, and you already know how to make the components. So it basically makes it so the body can quickly respond to things as they come about. If they're getting the science wrong here, just please go in the comments, correct me. So basically, the idea behind a vaccine is first it was found accidentally when somebody realized that milkmaids didn't get cowpox. And so I think they ended up like injecting it themselves or something, and then showing that they couldn't get sick from it. The idea is that you basically inject somebody with a dead version of the virus or bacteria or whatever, and you inject it into the people, and then when the body see the real thing, they know how to deal with it better. Vaccines are responsible for most of the actual lifespan increases over the past 120 years. All the other stuff are the pharmaceutical companies, anti-cancer, all that stuff. Vaccines are like a pretty large part of why people are not dying at age 10 of measles or polio or getting paralyzed with polio. Um, so that's how the science works. Basically, is that's how vaccines work. Um, I think most people are kind of on the same page with this. So what's happening now is that, so I guess more history. A lot of people are really, really sick. You hear about random people dying in history. A lot of people died from diseases. It is not a nothing burger of a benefit to society to have people be vaccinated. There's a reason why we made vaccines mandatory. So first of all, vaccines are great. Pro vaccine, 100%. Um, Now, what should I talk about next? I think that the other part of vaccines that's important to recognize is that there is a vector effect. So vaccines aren't 100% effective. They're not. But what they do is they cut the amount of vectors through which the disease can spread. So instead of having you meet the 10 people who have the disease on you, instead of infecting 10 of them and having it spread like that, it infects 3 of them and has it spread like that. Those kind of effects matter. So having a high percentage of vaccines in the population is really, really useful for society as a whole. Yes, one person is protected by by being vaccinated, but you also have a societal benefit of having everybody be vaccinated, which is a lot greater than just having individual people being vaccinated. This is why it matters that everybody gets vaccinated, not just a few people. I think that should be enough. So what's happening right now is that there are hearings going on between RFK and other people on Capitol Hill talking about vaccines. Oh, should I talk about? So basically, what countries? I'll say that for the end. The COVID vaccine is a different technology of vaccine. It's not the same technology as the old vaccines. They didn't just take COVID and inject people into people's bloodstreams. The dead version inject people into people's bloodstreams. Why, you ask? Because vaccines are created from chicken eggs. Chicken eggs, I think, might take like a year to produce. So instead, they had a technology called mRNA vaccines, where you inject somebody essentially. This is very simplified. You inject somebody with mRNA. The mRNA makes proteins, and those proteins are the antigens that the body recognizes. So it's not the same thing as the old vaccines we've all grown to know and love. It's a new technology that's actually really, really cool. If anybody says it's not cool, it's just not an interesting person. So right now, Fauci is basically running cleaning house on the CDC and other health establishment institutions, and he's getting questioned for that. That's basically what it comes down to. He's cleaning house. People are upset. RFK has said some things against vaccines, and sort of. So I read his book. Basically, he has a few main arguments. One, and they're not really about the vaccine specifically. Some people on the right are going to be against vaccines in general. RFK doesn't quite do that. He does a few things. One, he points out the preservatives that we have in vaccines might cause problems. This isn't part of vaccines. This is the preservative that transports vaccines into the human body. Different thing. The second argument he makes is that the vaccine load, that basically if you give people maybe 4 vaccines, you're good to go. If you give people 20 vaccines, if you give people 1,000 vaccines, it might overload their systems as your bodies try to recognize too many new things at the same time. And let's argue for absurdity. If you had 1,000,000 vaccines and you injected them all, do you think the human body would respond well? Probably not, right? So that's another one of his arguments, that we basically give too many vaccines to babies, and that could cause various effects, including in his mind autism, which it doesn't. Autism is just genetic. Your kids are autistic. That means you're probably a little bit autistic too. That's why it's also spiking, is because um, nerdy boys and nerdy girls are having kids, and they're not mixing with everybody else. So they're getting more concentrated. So to someone autistic people get together, they have a really autistic person. But anyway, there might also be other effects, that other things that cause autism. Um, so basically, everybody's arguing about this, and that's been the news. And this is actually something I kind of know something about because I know a little bit of science. So I'm going to post a lot about this over the next week. Both sides suck, because first of all, so this is me being a millennial. When I was a millennial and teenagers and the teenager early 20s, I remember that everybody in my generation hated rich people. And the number one goal of reason for hating rich people is because the dirty pharmaceutical companies were evil. I'm inclined to think that was probably true and probably still true. I think health insurance companies are evil. I think pharmaceutical companies have a lot of evil too. Some good, some evil. They go together. So what does that mean? It means that the all of the politicians are in pharmaceutical companies' pockets. They all get a lot of money from them. Um, Pharmaceutical companies have been selecting who is in charge of various regulatory agencies, whether it be the FDA or the CDC, or whatever else. So you can't really trust the politicians who are in the pockets of big pharma. However, you also can't really trust RFK. Not because I think he's untrustworthy, but he spent his past 30 years of life fighting the same fight. It doesn't matter if your motivations are pure or not. If you spend 30 years pursuing an argument, you're going to be blind to anything that opposes that argument. Those are facts. So you can't really trust him either. So you don't trust the people against reform, and you don't trust the people doing the reforming. Both sides are either corrupt or obsessive. So what does that mean? Does that mean I have an easy solution for everybody? Well, kind of. So the issue is that we're not the only countries that have vaccines. We're not. Other countries have biology and chemists and even engineers. It's exciting. And frankly, I trust the healthcare systems in those countries more than I trust the healthcare systems in our country. Namely, because they spend about 10% of their GDP on healthcare, and we spend like 40%, and they get much better results. Also, America is incredibly unhealthy. That's a fact. That is a fact. And anybody who says it's not a fact is lying to you. We're fat, we're inflamed, we're depressed, we have all kinds of issues compared to other countries in the West. So these are countries that have sort of same amount of money as us, actually less money than us, and yet they have much better outcomes. So yes, I do trust their healthcare systems more than ours. So what does that mean? Well, different European countries have different attitudes towards vaccines. Sweden is an outlier, has zero vaccine mandates. That's an outlier. Sweden is more of a vegetarian than you think. But most countries in Europe have a range of number of vaccines from like 6 to 12 required. America's 15, by the way, before anything RFK changed over the past 6 months. So I would suggest, if you don't know what the right answer is, and you know somebody really smart who's getting better answers than you are, what do? Well, if you're taking a test, you stick your head to your own paper. If you're programming something at work, or you're doing something in research, do you know what you do? You copy something that's working. If they know more than you, and you know they know more than you copy their shit. That is all I'm saying. We copy the vaccine regime of some country in some country in Europe that we think, or the average of countries in Europe. I don't know. Like take the average of France, Germany, and England. Sure, why not? So we would give the vaccine in using the preservatives they use, using the formulations they use, using the amounts they use for the things they vaccinate for. Nothing more, nothing less. Yes, does that sound lazy without thinking? Yes, it is a very lazy answer, but it would be the right one. And you know what? I do trust their data more than ours. And you know what? We can compare before and after. It would give us a base case to say, okay, this is what we did with our system. This is what we did with a base case system of another country or continent, European Union, whatever. We see what, and when we test it, and we study, hey, what kind of positive and negatives do we get over the next 3 years with newborns or with infants? I don't know if there's a better solution out there than what I'm offering right now. We toss aside what we have. We toss aside RFK. We toss aside all the politicians. We hire some former or current CDC equivalents from France. I like France. Why not France? They need the France would do it too. They like getting prestige for stuff, so France would say yes, and we just ask them to do it, or we do a damn white paper. Say, okay, we're gonna copy their stuff. You can do an American system, what we've had, or a state can do the French system. So we can have half the country, half the states copy France, half the states do what we're doing now. I think this is a really good solution. So, what does this mean? If I want to sum up, vaccines work. They're good. I'm pro-vaccine. Um, Everybody's either corrupt or blinded by their own ideology. Um, our current healthcare system sucks. We know that. So therefore, we should copy a system that probably sucks less, or at the very least, are lobbied by different people. Like if you choose all the European stuff, and plus, I mean, why would we want to get along better with Europe, right? I mean, that's something we want. Maybe I don't know. Well, we don't want to copy Europe. Copy Japan or South Korea. I don't care. Just copy somebody. Not don't just like throw everything out like RFK is doing, and don't just like say everything's fine because we know it's not. Um, so yeah, probably gonna do more of a deep. I'm probably gonna talk about this more over the next week or 2 weeks or for a while. Mostly because nobody. I've been following some of the news on it. If you follow any Democrat sources, you basically have a million left wingers winning exchanges with RFK. If you see right wing sources, you have a bunch of RFK owns the libs, and they're both wrong and right at the same time. Nobody seems to have a good grasp on the science. None of these people on any side have ever taken a calculus class. I can guarantee you that. They're not technical people. Um, None of them seem to be very able to see things objectively. None of them are. It's just another show, and frankly, this is not just a show. This is very, very important for different reasons. One, we are facing demographic collapse, which isn't going to be that bad, but you still need to watch it. You don't want to have an explosion in the child death rate. That said, you also don't want to have an explosion of other issues like myocarditis or whatever else. Not autism. I don't think autism has anything to do with this, but a bunch of other things that basically could decrease people's future fertility and future number of ability to have kids and health and all that kind of stuff. Um, so I honestly don't think anybody is giving a good take on this right now. Um, and so yeah, I think my take is pretty solid. This is got a very large potential of very much backfiring on MAGA. People don't like when you have the possibility of harming kids. It's why trans is so on the out right now. Nobody likes to people who they perceive as going after their kids. If you go after vaccines and you can convince people that kids are dying because of it, MAGA is screwed. And along with it, any free speech or any other gains we've had over the past 8 months, they're all gone. You don't want to lose this for no reason. Be careful. I don't want to lose. And I also am pro science. I feel like it's way I am against the whole worship experts kind of thing. I am against that whole idea of worshiping experts. But I do not want to be the anti-science party. I am pro science if it's science. I don't like all this scientism where it's like you worship science and say, oh, somebody believes something, so it's got to be true. It's like, no, but I believe in science, there's method, the some of the facts. So yeah, that's all I got. Right, that's all I got for today. It's entertaining, I guess, which is nice. I'm glad that we're looking at things. I'm glad we're having the discussion. It's just if you're not making the correct arguments from that discussion, you might just be an idiot. Anyway, I'm obviously still very sick. I don't get sick very often, but when I get sick, it just whams me. That's why I haven't really been doing these live streams for the past week. So hopefully I feel better tomorrow. And that's all for now. Cheers.